Welcome to Xi Jinping Briefing. The content of the briefing includes the Telegraph Guide to Elections in 2024, Democracy's Biggest Year. Democracy is more robust than its enemies believe, and 2024 will prove it. How Xi Jinping is challenging dollar dominance with landmark Saudi deal. The Telegraph Guide to Elections in 2024, Democracy's Biggest Year. Telegraph. 2024 is set to be a significant year for democracy, with over 1.5 billion people expected to vote in national elections around the world. The United States, Russia, India, Ukraine, Pakistan, Indonesia, Mexico, and Taiwan are among the countries that will hold presidential or parliamentary elections next year. The UK and European Union will also hold elections to their respective parliaments. These elections come at a time of international turmoil, with conflicts in Gaza and Ukraine. The votes will be among the first to be influenced by generative AI, which has the power to spread disinformation and undermine public confidence in the democratic process. The U.S. election will be closely watched as it could produce the second-ever president to serve 2 non-consecutive terms, with Donald Trump seeking re-election against Joe Biden. Russia and Ukraine, who are in conflict with each other, will both hold presidential elections in 2024. India's election, with almost 1 billion people eligible to vote, is the largest in the world and will see Narendra Modi seek a second term as Prime Minister. Taiwan's election could have global ramifications, with tensions simmering in the South China Sea. Europe will also hold elections for the European Parliament, with several national votes planned in smaller European countries. Democracy is more robust than its enemies believe, and 2024 will prove it. Telegraph. The year 2024 will see over 2 billion citizens across 50 countries go to the polls, making it the highest number of voters in human history. Despite concerns of democratic decline due to the rise of authoritarian states and domestic volatility in countries like the United States, the idea of democracy remains resilient. Authoritarian rulers are still compelled to appeal to the idea of freedom, even if they suppress it. In countries like Ukraine and Taiwan, citizens are willing to fight and shed blood for democracy. The upcoming elections in these countries will be significant in the battle of ideas between democracy and autocracy. In Taiwan, a win for the Democratic Progressive Party would expose the failure of China's attempts to impose its will on the nation. Meanwhile, India will be a democratic miracle in 2024 with its massive population and diverse linguistic groups going to the polls. The United States, often seen as the greatest democratic experiment, is facing a rhetoric of crisis and implosion. However, a re-election of Donald Trump could be seen as a triumph of American democracy and its ability to contain the instincts of whoever sits in the Oval Office. How Xi Jinping is challenging dollar dominance with landmark Saudi deal. Telegraph. China and Saudi Arabia are deepening their ties as China seeks to challenge the global dominance of the US dollar. Talks between the two countries about pricing oil sales in renminbi, as opposed to dollars, have been accelerating, and in November, China and Saudi Arabia signed an agreement to set up a currency swap line worth 50 billion Chinese yuan, $7.7 billion. This landmark deal means Saudi Arabia has access to a supply of Chinese currency at a set exchange rate, and vice versa for Beijing and the Saudi rial. The deal is significant because if China's oil and gas trade operates in renminbi, it would be outside the Western financial system and effectively unsanctionable. Furthermore, it establishes a framework for a swap deal that could be scaled up easily in the future. While the renminbi is still a long way from challenging the dominance of the dollar, the number of transactions involving the Chinese currency is rising rapidly, and it has overtaken the euro as the second most used currency in global trade. 2024 is shaping up to be a big year for democracy, with over 1.5 billion people expected to vote in national elections around the world. From the United States to Russia, India to Mexico, and Taiwan to the UK, countries across the globe will be holding presidential or parliamentary elections. These elections come at a time of international turmoil, with conflicts in Gaza and Ukraine, and the rise of generative AI threatening to spread disinformation and undermine public confidence in the democratic process. But fear not, dear viewers, for democracy is more robust than its enemies believe. Despite concerns of democratic decline, the idea of freedom remains resilient. Authoritarian rulers may suppress it, but they are still compelled to appeal to it. Citizens in countries like Ukraine and Taiwan are willing to fight and shed blood for democracy, and their upcoming elections will be significant in the battle between democracy and autocracy. India, with its massive population and diverse linguistic groups, will also be a democratic miracle in 2024. On the global stage, China is challenging the dominance of the US dollar with a landmark deal with Saudi Arabia. By pricing oil sales in renminbi instead of dollars, China aims to operate outside the Western financial system and establish a framework for future swap deals. While the renminbi is still a long way from overtaking the dollar, its increasing use in global trade is a sign of its growing influence. So, as we enter the year 2024, let us celebrate the resilience of democracy and the ongoing battle for freedom. Keep an eye on these elections, for they will shape the future of nations and the world. And remember, democracy may have its challenges, but it will always prevail in the end. Now, over to you, dear viewers. What are your thoughts on the upcoming elections and the state of democracy in the world? Do you have any questions or ideas to share? Let's engage in a lively discussion. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.